Hi everyone, I'm Luke Hector from the Broken Meeple, a show where I devote my time to reviewing board games by raving and ranting, but usually more the ranting part. This is beyond the base game, where I talk about expansions to games because, let's face it, nobody else seems to bother. Well, in this case, I'm looking at the newest expansion for Ticket to Ride. Now, you already know I love Ticket to Ride. It's probably an 8 out of 10 for me at this point, maybe creeping to a 9 in places. I mean, I'm not saying it's like my favourite game ever, but it's easily in my top 100. And when it comes to games that I think should be at the top of Board Game Geek, I mean, the true top games of Board Game Geek, this should be one of them. This should be in the top 10. I'm not saying, again, it's not the best game ever made, but this has been going on since 2004, and it is still going strong and still a bestseller today. It's my dad's favourite game. I can play it with just about anybody, gamers or non-gamers. What more do you want? Why on earth do we have the stuff that we normally have at the top 10 of Board Game Geek and not stuff like this? I just don't get the rating system. Well, this is 2 big box maps. You know, as much as those little ones have been alright, like Paris and Berlin and all of that, I've got London. I don't need any more small Ticket to Ride boxes. So those ones I'm not too fussed about. But I'm always up for more of the big maps. This is Iberia and South Korea, and as much as it does say Ticket to Ride Map Collection 8, technically it's 9 because Poland was 6.5. It was sold only in the Polish market, although we got a few copies here in the UK, so I've grabbed it myself. But yeah, it's kind of weird looking at this saying 8 when technically it should be 9, but well, you know, the numbering system, whatever. So I was keen to get stuck into this. I'm just basically going to tell you an overview of how each map works and what I think of it.
Get on with it.
Okay, first, welcome to Iberia, or Spain. I don't know why they just called it Spain. Why is it always Iberia? But I digress. So, in this particular map, first of all, you have a selection of train cards, which you can use for both this and the South Korea map. I like the look of these. They're very nice pictures, very nice and colourful, particularly the locomotives, which kind of look like a Super Mario Kart Rainbow Road thing. But these are very nice cards, but the reason why these are compatible with these 2 maps in particular is because the backing on the card matches the backing for another card that you'll see. We'll get onto those in a minute. The idea with the Spanish map is very much the same. You know, you have tickets, you have points for routes, you are trying to connect them. But here's a couple of little gimmicks with this one. Firstly, you have festival cards, and this is quite a big deck of festival cards here, and they have the same backing as these because they are mixed in with this deck. So you end up with this whopping great big deck that you need to put into 2 halves ideally to make it stand properly. But the idea of this is this creates a kind of pseudo-random set collecting game. As these festival cards are drawn out of the train card deck, they will go near the board, close to the various cities where festivals could take place. So, I mean, we've got Coimbra, Porto, Pamplona, Cadiz, Barcelona, that kind of thing. And, or this one, Valladolid. Valladolid? I don't actually know what that place is. I'm gonna take Palma. Palma's a bit easier to pronounce. But let's say I draw Palma out of the deck, we'll put it to the side, and what these cards have is they have point values to get you at the end of the game for collecting so many of that particular city. And all you have to do is connect a route to one of those cities at any point while they're there. So it is very much of a case of, they've come out, the festival's on. Right, everybody get to that city quick so you can nab the cards. The points value is not linear and they do differ between the cards. I gotta admit, I find the points value a bit confusing on some of these. I mean, for example, you can go to Granada, there's only 1 card in the set and it gets you 5 points, but then you've got Lisboa. First one is worth 4. If you get 2, it's only worth 5. 3, it's only worth 7. It's not a huge amount of progression on some of these point values, and I'm a little bit confused as to the design choices behind some of them. But basically, it gives you another way to score points, because you've got tickets that you want to do, you've got, you know, placing large routes, but now you can get points for collecting a bunch of these in addition to what you would normally do. But that's not the biggest sort of impact twist here. You also, again, have tickets to complete, but now, in both these maps, you do something which I suspect people have been house ruling into this game for quite a while, but now it's actually official. You draft the starting tickets. Yes, normally you just got dealt 4 and you picked 1 or 2 out of the 4 or something like that. Well, this time, you now get 6 cards that you keep in your hand to begin with. You draft 1, pass it round, get a new set of 5, keep 1, pass it round, and once you're done with the draft, you have to keep 4 of them. Exactly 4. Not like, oh, I'll just keep up to 4. No, exactly 4. So you can only afford to trash 2 really bad ones. You're going to make do with the other 4. I quite like this new twist of drafting the tickets. Not recommended for new players. I don't think either of these two maps are great for new players to ticket a ride, because drafting the tickets now not only has you thinking about, well, can I collect tickets that work for me, but you've also got to think, well, hang on, that sort of works for me, but then if I give it to you, I've already given you some tickets that go over that area. I think I'm just like handing you really easy routes here. So you are thinking a little bit about your neighbour after you as well as your own tickets. So you draft these at the start and then you play through a normal game of Ticket to Ride with the festivals adding to it. But then in the deck, about halfway, 2/3 of the way, depending on player count, is a second draft card. When this comes out, you then do that exact draft a second time. And you're not allowed to draw tickets by normal methods until the second draft has happened. So that's essentially an overview of the Spanish map. Do I think it's any good?
Ooh, short answer yes with an if, long answer no with a but.
Yeah, the thing with this one is that there's aspects I like and aspects I don't. You know, the map itself I think is fairly well designed. There's a good mix of colours, there's short and long, some doubles, a couple of annoying ferries to deal with for Palma, but otherwise it's a fairly simple map to get around. The festivals, I like the idea that it does make you go, I could put a route and carry on my ticket, but then if I go over to Pamplona over there, I mean, 3 cards have just come out for that festival because it is random as they come on. You might just spam them all at once. That's worth 15 points if I go over there. It's like, maybe I should, but I want to do my ticket. I'm worried I'll get blocked. There's that little bit of extra thinking and decision space, which I do like. And otherwise, the game is very much the same. I like drafting the tickets at the start of the game. I don't like doing it later, and this compounds with the other flaw I have for this game. Rails and Sails, if you ever know what that Ticket to Ride is, it's not a very popular Ticket to Ride map because you have to kind of dictate what you're going to do from the start, but it is very, very chaotic and random, even for a Ticket to Ride game, and takes about 2 and a bit hours to play. Well, this one takes the normal length of time to play, but man, is it chaotic. Yes, because not only have you got the normal luck aspects of Ticket to Ride, of drawing cards at random and, you know, when drawing tickets at random, but now you have the added randomness of the festival cards. They will come out in no particular order and at no particular time. Somebody might draw 2 cards from this deck. The first one will be their normal card. Second one is a festival. Third one is a festival. Fourth one is a festival. Fifth one is a festival. Sixth one is a festival. They could be drawing through half the deck worth of festival cards because they're all right next to each other before they even get their second train card. And so suddenly, before you know it, the board is then spammed with a bunch of these festival cards. But then you might have a period where they barely come out. But because it's random where they appear, it's not really a skill thing to see who benefits from them. You know, I might be doing a ticket down here, and then suddenly all the festivals appear for places up there. Well, okay, I could go up there, but I'm slightly hemorrhaging myself. Whereas for the opponent after me, they're like, well, I was planning to go to Barcelona anyway. I mean, yeah, free green, I'll take those too. Yeah, added bonus. And this creates a lot of swingy moments of just festival cards coming out at the perfect opportunity for the right person. But then add to that the second draft. I really don't think you should do a second draft because in the normal game you do get those people who just get jammy at the very end, who draw tickets, get a ticket that actually is already being done by them or is really easy, haha, easy points. It's a flaw of the game and I do wish people would not do that, but the second draft just basically takes that annoyance and turns it up to 11. Because think about it, 2/3 of the game have done, which means most of the board is already used up. Some cities might not even be accessible again, especially in a free player where you haven't got the double routes. And so doing a draft again means that you could just end up in a situation either where you end up with a bunch of tickets that you just can't physically do, or are too much out of the way, because yes, you can only ditch 2 of them, you got to keep 4 at least, well 4 exactly, but then you might have somebody who literally draws their first 2 out of the draft and it's like, oh, I've already done that one. Oh, I've already done that one. And yes, you might argue, well, hang on, surely you should look at the cards you pass your neighbour before you pass one on, but are you going to take a route that you probably cannot do just to stop somebody else getting 3 points? Because bear in mind, you lose points when you don't do the ticket. You're really screwing yourself over to stop them. It's like, it's not something you can really do. And it just creates an even bigger bout of swinginess of luck. And that is the problem with the Spanish map. It's just a bit too random. You know, it's not to say that there isn't enjoyment. I do like the choice of gunning for these festival cards. But you can't really make it your strategy for the game because they come out totally at random. So you might be saying, I'm going to grab all the festival cards. it might just not go the way that the festival cards just don't come out where you want them. You just don't have the cards or whatever. So it's not a viable strategy by itself. It's just another opportunity you can grab. But drafting twice and all the added randomness just makes this map kind of fine, but not great. It's not one that I think I'll be playing too often, but it is better than some of the other maps that I'm not as big a fan of, like say Netherlands. It's not a particular massive favorite. I don't tend to play Europe very much. You know, I'd probably rather play this in Europe, but you know, it's an okay map. I'd probably give it about a 6 out of 10 overall, above average. But worse, you could go to a 5. There's no way I would give this a 7. The randomness is just too high to make this a map that I want to play over and over again. I will play it every now and again, like say somebody's fairly new to the game, they can handle the drafting of tickets and they just want something that, you know, they could win easily because of the added luck factor. Or maybe I just fancy a change of map and there's not that many extra complicated rules. But you have to put up with a bit of fiddliness with the festival cards, because obviously you're constantly drawing off the deck and constantly putting them around. You've got to find space around the board for them, because people are going to wonder where the hell the city is on the map, because these festival cards do not help you in that regard. You know, it tells you Palma, but unlike the tickets, it doesn't give you any clue as to where Palma is. So you draw it and you go, where's Palma? Oh, there it is, over there. And it's like, that happens every time you draw one of these. It can get a little annoying. Not to mention the added setup with having to shuffle all of these with all the train cards and then separate them out when the game is over. It just adds to the setup and takedown time. So at most, I would give this a 6 out of 10, and even that's a fairly low 6 out of 10. It's an okay map. Play it every now and again. I've enjoyed my time with it, but it's just got too many little issues.
You were the chosen one!
And now we invite you to South Korea. This is an easier map to actually see what's going on, because most of the Ticket to Ride maps are quite bright, whereas this one's got a very dark background. It's like on your Microsoft Outlook or on your Windows PC when you're looking at something in dark mode. That's kind of what this is, and it does make it, I think, easier to see what's what, but I think it also just makes it a bit more striking and stands out as a Ticket to Ride map. Well, this one is a little bit simpler, I would say, than the Iberia map, but not by much. But you'd still draft the tickets at the start of the game, but you don't have the second draft, which is good. I think at the start of the game is fine. Having the second one doesn't work. This one only has a couple of different rules, but there's a very unique setup style to this board. Look at the board itself, either by photos or on here. Notice something in particular that's a little different from other maps. Bar maybe Africa, which is the closest resemblance. The provinces or district areas of this map are very unique in their color coding. So a particular area over here is entirely blue tracks with a little overlap of yellow and purple, because those are the two neighboring provinces that are dictated primarily purple and yellow. And over here is green with a little overlap of orange here and there. Here's black with a bit of overlap of green. Here's white. Here's red with a bit of overlap of black. You know, there's, for the most part, these sections of the board are dictated by the one color of card. This makes things very interesting when you draw train cards during a game, because if I start drawing a bunch of reds, well, I've just communicated to everybody that I want to take routes down here in the red section, because no other route up in this area wants red. There are only 2 neutral tracks on the board, one here, and they're both long. Other than that though, if I'm taking red, I'm going down there. So you're almost kind of half telegraphing where it is you want to go when you draw chain cards from the face-up display. That's a unique twist. It gives you a little bit more knowledge about what the other players are doing. But here are the main unique things for this. Firstly, you have these express train cards, a +1, a +2, and a +3. What you can do with these is you can effectively play them to modify your turn. So you can draw tickets as normal, you can draw train cards as normal, and we'll get onto the new province board in a minute. But basically, you can play one of these, it's once per game, flip it down, and it adds its value to the action. So for example, if I'm drawing train cards, and I played my +3, I get to draw 3 cards from the top of the deck before I do my normal draw. So I end up with 5 cards in the turn. It's a one-off, but maybe I just need a lot of cards to build back up. Same goes for tickets. You can draw more tickets and choose from out of them. The third use, we'll get onto in a minute. This is a nice little addition. It just gives you a way to boost a particular action. You've got 3 of them. Do I use them early or do I wait and use them later? You know, what's the decision for that? Well, that's up to you. This is something that you could throw into any game of Ticket to Ride as well. You could easily just have these 3 cards in any of the Ticket to Ride maps. It would work exactly the same. You just have to, I mean, you wouldn't have the 3rd use. We'll get onto that in a minute, but certainly for drawing tickets and drawing train cards, you could easily throw these in. It wouldn't be too bad. I wonder if there is a way that you could do that, but I think you'd probably just have to house rule it for now. But it's nice, it's easy to teach, and they do come in handy. But here's the big deal, the province board. So whoop, it's buried underneath here. Here we go, that's what I want. This thing. So this is a flimsy piece of paper, but whatever. It's essentially kept next to the board, and what it has is it has a big line of 8 track squares for each of the color lines on the board. And the idea is that when you play cards to build on the board, you can, in addition to that, let's say I play the 4 purple here, I can take 1 extra train from my supply and place it on the 4 space of the purple, because I've just laid out a track of 4, and it takes up the slot. The idea is that this is essentially kind of like an area majority mechanic for point scoring at the end. It's dictated by player count, so the points will vary, but essentially you add up the values of all the trains you've got on each track and determine first, second, third. So it's not just who's ahead on the track, who's got the highest, that's just a tiebreaker. But if somebody got a 6 and I've got a 4 and a 3, well, I've got 7, you've got 6, I actually win that track. This creates a lot of competition among players because you have got 8 different lines that you can do this for, which is quite cool. But the other thing I quite like is that it adds a way for players to kind of jury rig the timer for the game. Because obviously the game still ends when you end up with 2 or less trains. You have, I think, 35 or 45 trains. How many trains is it? Let me just double check. 45. So you have the standard amount of trains. But because you can sort of go on this at your leisure, I might try and aim for the really high values and not use up my trains on here. I want to use more of them on the board. But you could feasibly do a bunch of little ones. You probably won't win first place on most of these tracks. But because you're like taking out your trains really quickly and shoving them on here, you might be able to rush the game end timer quicker than the others are willing to do. And even during the game, you might get to a point, sometimes in a typical Ticket to Ride game, where it's like, I don't need to play anything specific, I've done my tickets, well, what else am I going to do? And you just find yourself arbitrarily playing tracks. Well, now I've got a way to make the game speed up. I've done my tickets, I'm good. I even drew some extra tickets and I've done them. I'm good. I want the game to end now before you lot build up. Okay, I'll do 2 blue, suck up another train. I'll do this 2 black over here, suck up another train. And before you know it, you've caught up to the game end timer. It's a nice little twist, and the competition for these is really high, particularly when you've got 4 players. I think you can play this with 5. Most of the time I don't like to play Ticket to Ride with 5 anyway, it's just too chaotic, but with 4 players, even with the double route, some of these areas can get pretty contested for space, and because the routes are colour dependent, you might be drawing all green to go from here to the other end of the map. But if somebody beats you to it, you've suddenly got to switch to orange, and you might have been spending ages collecting the green because you were going to that region. That's similar to other Ticket to Ride maps, I know, but in here it kind of has more of an impact. Other than that, everything else is the same. The tickets are the same, and you draft them at the start, and the tickets here range from like 3 points for a tiny connection, but they could range for 21 if you want to go from one end to the other, so they are pretty wide and varied. This map I actually quite like a lot. It's a very simple map, and as long as you could, I wouldn't necessarily teach it to a brand new player, but somebody who's played Ticket to Ride once or twice maybe, and is comfortable with the whole drafting of the tickets at the start of the game, could easily get into this one. The rules are not complicated to use this province board, and it's just area majority, but it gives you a bit of extra choice when you place a route and something to aim for. You know, even if you're not necessarily going hard for tickets, you might try and go really hard for this. So you're tailoring what routes you play to block other players as well as do well on this track. And the third use for those express cards, if I played 4 and I get a 4 on here, not only can you overspend from your cards in order to go a bit higher, but if I play one of these, I can go even higher as well. So I might even be able to play 5 tracks, play my +3, and I can go all the way to +8. A third use for these cool little cards. This career map is a bit of a surprise. It feels different enough from a normal Ticket to Ride map, not just because of the mechanic it has for scoring, but just its layout in general is really different. This one I enjoyed a lot more, I think, than Iberia. This is a map that I would like to play more often again. I don't know if I enjoy it quite as much as some of the other maps that are like really good that I really enjoy. I mean, which ones are, you know, my dad really likes India. It's a fairly basic map, but it's a good layout. I obviously love United Kingdom. That's one of my favorite maps. In fact, I did a video ages ago on my top 10 favorite Ticket to Ride maps. Just go check that out. But, you know, stuff like, you know, I like India, but stuff like, you know, UK, France, sort of Pennsylvania. What's another one I really like? Japan. I like Japan with the bullet train. You know, some of those quirky little mechanics probably do overtake this one and that, but I would still give this map an 8 out of 10 and say that this is a great map to play. And if you don't mind paying for the second map as well, this is kind of worth the price of admission if you want to get a really good map. You know, Iberia is not bad, it's just a bit random for my liking. For some people, they might not care. They just want to play it with their kids and they don't mind a bit of a random luck fest at the end of the day. But this one I just felt was unique in how it played out. It felt different enough from other Ticket to Rides, despite the fact that its only main new mechanic is this.
It sounds dreamy.
So that's it for me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. Please thumb it up on YouTube and thumb it up on Board Game Geek when it goes live on the expansion page. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I don't need to necessarily know what your favourite Ticket to Ride map is. There's already a top 10 list you could do that for. But let me know your thoughts on these two maps. Have you played them? Do you like it? Do you agree or disagree with my verdicts? Do any of them sound good to you? Do any of them sound terrible to you? By all means, let me know your thoughts. Take care, and remember, regardless of whether you prefer to train around sunny Spain or... what's the climate like in South Korea? I don't know. I really need to check on my geography. It's still only a game, so bye for now.